The air in the Normandy hedgerow was thick with the smell of damp earth and fear. An American GI, his face smudged with dirt, pressed his back against the earthen wall, clutching not his M1 Garand, but a shorter, older-looking weapon, a Winchester Model 97 trench gun. Its wooden stock was worn smooth, the blued steel scarred by use. To an outsider it looked like a farmer's tool, a relic from the last war, but to the German soldiers on the other side of that wall, it represented something far more terrifying. The fear wasn't just about the spray of buckshot or the noise. It was about what this weapon did to the very idea of a fair fight. It was a tool that negated skill, training, and distance, reducing combat to a brutal, intimate lottery of survival. By the end, you'll understand the dark reason why the mere mention of a shotgun could make a battle-hardened German soldier's blood run cold. What if the most terrifying sound on the battlefield wasn't a scream or an explosion, but a simple, metallic click? In 1944, American commanders faced a problem they hadn't fully anticipated. The war in Europe was not the sweeping open desert conflict of North Africa. It was a grinding, claustrophobic fight through a labyrinth of natural and man-made obstacles. In Normandy, the Bocage country presented a nightmare scenario: massive earthen hedgerows, thousands of years old, topped with thick shrubs that created perfect, deadly choke points. Each field was a fortress, each lane a potential kill zone. The standard issue M1 Garand, a brilliant rifle for open combat, was too long and too precise for these close-quarters battles. Soldiers found themselves in situations where they had only seconds to react to an enemy just a few feet away. The military needed a solution for this specific, brutal environment. They looked back in time and found the trench shotgun, a weapon designed for the exact same kind of fighting a generation earlier. It looked like the perfect answer for the unique hell of the hedgerows, the rubble-strewn streets of St. Lo, and the dark, tangled woods of the Hürtgen forest. Then the first German patrols tried to rush those hedgerows, and the paper logic died. On paper, the shotgun was a masterpiece of specialized design. Its advantage was simple and devastating: overwhelming firepower at close range. Where a rifleman had to aim carefully, a shotgunner just had to point. A single blast could send 9 .33 caliber pellets tearing through a space the size of a manhole cover, making a miss almost impossible at 10 yards. American soldiers who carried them, often non-commissioned officers and point men, quickly developed a fanatical loyalty to the weapon. In the tight confines of a ruined French building or the dense gloom of a forest, the shotgun was king. The Germans, who prided themselves on their disciplined rifle fire and squad tactics, had no direct equivalent. Their MP-40 submachine guns were effective, but they fired a single pistol. Bullet, not a swarm of them. The shotgun represented a level of raw, indiscriminate power they couldn't match. The specific models, like the Winchester Model 97 and the Ithaca 37, were even more terrifying. They lacked a trigger disconnector, meaning a soldier could hold down the trigger and simply pump the action, firing the weapon as fast as he could work the slide. It was a relentless, room-clearing machine, but that advantage came with a bill, and it was paid in terror and fury. The first dark reason was the environment itself. The shotgun didn't create the fear, the battlefield did. In the close quarters of the hedgerows, every engagement was a surprise. You couldn't see 20 feet in front of you. Sound was muffled by the thick earth and vegetation. This environment negated the primary advantages of the German soldier: superior training with the Kar 98K rifle at range, and the devastating firepower of the MG42 machine gun. In a hedgerow lane, you couldn't set up an MG42 for a long sweeping burst. You couldn't use your rifle marksmanship when the enemy suddenly appeared from behind a bush 5 feet away. The shotgun, however, was purpose-built for this chaos. Its short barrel made it easy to maneuver in tight spaces. Its wide spread meant that in the panic and confusion of a close-range ambush, you didn't need to be a perfect shot. You just needed to pull the trigger. The battlefield itself became the shotgun's deadliest accomplice, turning every corner into a potential firing squad, and that was only the beginning. The second dark reason was the ammunition gamble. While the shotgun was devastating with the right ammunition, getting that ammunition to the front lines was a constant logistical headache. Buckshot was a specialized round, not as universally produced as standard rifle or machine gun ammo. Supply lines, already stretched thin across France, often prioritized the standard weapons. This meant that many shotgunners were forced to use whatever they could get their hands on. Sometimes that meant less effective birdshot, which had a shorter range and less penetrating power. Other times it meant using slugs, single, massive projectiles. While a slug could be lethal, it turned the shotgun into a slow, single-shot rifle, completely negating its primary advantage of a wide spread. This unreliability meant the shotgunner never truly knew what his weapon was capable of until he fired it. Was he holding a room-clearing wonder weapon, or an awkward, underpowered club? This uncertainty added another layer of stress to an already terrifying job. The third dark reason was the horrifying physics of buckshot. A rifle bullet is a single, focused projectile. It makes a clean, if terrible, wound. Buckshot is different. It's a swarm. When a German soldier was hit by a shotgun blast at close range, he wasn't struck by one bullet. He was struck by 9 or more simultaneously, each pellet acting like a miniature bullet. The effect wasn't a puncture wound. It was a massive area of blunt force trauma and tissue destruction. A blast to the chest wouldn't just break a rib, it would shatter the entire rib cage. A hit to a limb wouldn't just graze it, it would pulverize bone and shred muscle. Medics on both sides knew that a shotgun wound was often untreatable in the field. The sheer number of wounds, the massive bleeding, and the shock to the system meant that a soldier hit squarely in the torso or abdomen was almost certainly going to die, no matter how quickly he got help. The fear wasn't just of being shot, it was of being obliterated, of being torn apart by a weapon that left no clean wound, only a gaping, horrific mess. This led directly to the fourth dark reason, the beyond-the-grave effect of the wounds. The horror of a shotgun injury didn't end when the shooting stopped. It began a new, more prolonged nightmare, because buckshot created dozens of ragged, deep wounds. The rate of infection was astronomical. The pellets themselves, often carrying fragments of clothing and dirt from the battlefield, were perfect vectors for gangrene. A soldier who might have survived an initial blast if he were immediately evacuated would often die days later in a field hospital, screaming as his body rotted from the inside out. This knowledge filtered down to the front lines. German soldiers knew that being hit by a shotgun wasn't just a risk of death, it was a guarantee of a horrific, agonizing end. They heard the stories from captured comrades, or saw the bodies left behind. It was a fate worse than a clean bullet wound, a fate that haunted their every step through the treacherous close-quarters battlefields. The fifth dark reason was purely psychological, the sound of the pump action. Before a single shot was fired, the shotgun had already won many fights. In the eerie quiet of a contested building or a misty forest path, the distinctive ka-chunk of a Winchester pump action being cycled was a sound of pure dread. For the German soldier, it was an unambiguous signal. It wasn't the mechanical clack of a Mauser bolt or the sharp snap of a Garand's action. It was a sound that said, "I am here, I am ready, and you are about to die." It was the sound of a final, irreversible judgment. That sound broke the will to fight in a way no bullet could. It caused hesitation, panic, and surrender. Soldiers who would have eagerly charged a rifleman would freeze or throw down their weapons when they heard that metallic slide. It was a psychological weapon that preceded the physical one, a tool that could defeat an enemy's mind before his body was even engaged. And that was just the sound. The sixth dark reason was that the shotgun completely dismantled German squad tactics. German infantry doctrine was built around the team, with the MG42 as the centerpiece of firepower and riflemen supporting it. It was a system designed for controlled, disciplined fire at distance. The shotgun rendered this entire system obsolete in close quarters. A single American soldier with a trench gun could neutralize an entire German squad before they could effectively react. Imagine a German squad moving through a building. They enter a room, securing it as they've been trained, but from the next room they hear the ka-chunk. Before the MG42 gunner can swing his heavy weapon around, before the riflemen can bring their long barrels to bear, the door bursts open and a wall of buckshot fills the space. The disciplined formation evaporates into chaos. The shotgun negated their training, their teamwork, and their primary weapon, reducing a sophisticated tactical unit to a group of terrified individuals in a fraction of a second. The seventh dark reason was the one no one talked about, the veteran's curse. The shotgun was not a weapon for a raw recruit. It required a specific kind of courage, or recklessness. To be effective, the shotgunner had to be the first man through the door, the first man around the corner. He had to close the distance to within 10 or 15 yards, putting himself in extreme danger. He had to be willing to look another man in the eye before pulling the trigger and obliterating him. This took an immense psychological toll. While other soldiers could rationalize their kills as happening at a distance, through a scope, or as part of a team effort, the shotgunner's kills were intensely personal. The men who carried these weapons for a long time often changed. They became withdrawn, hyper-vigilant, and haunted by the faces of the men they had killed at point-blank range. They suffered from higher rates of combat fatigue and what we would now call PTSD. The weapon that saved their lives so many times was also destroying their minds. Let me put you there. In a ruined house in St. Lo, you're a young German soldier, part of a veteran squad. You've moved from room to room, your MP40 at the ready. You enter a kitchen, the air thick with plaster dust. Your point man is at the door to the next room. He nods, and you prepare to follow. Suddenly, from the other side of that thin wooden door, you hear it. Ka-chunk! It's not loud, but it cuts through everything. Your point man freezes, his eyes wide. The MG42 gunner in the hallway behind you swears under his breath. The sound is a promise. You know, with absolute certainty, what is coming next. There is no maneuvering, no tactical response. There is only a door and a man with a weapon that doesn't miss. The door explodes inward. Not from a kick, but from the blast itself. You feel not one impact, but a wave of them across your chest and face. The last thing you ever see is the glint of sunlight on a worn-out Winchester barrel. This wasn't combat. It was an execution. Now picture another scene. You're an American sergeant in the Hürtgen forest. A dark, hellish maze of towering fir trees and dense undergrowth. Your squad is advancing cautiously when you spot a German machine gun nest ahead, dug in, behind logs and sandbags. Flanking it is impossible in the thick woods. A frontal assault with rifles is suicide. You look at your men, then at the Ithaca 37 in your hands. You take a deep breath, give the signal, and then you run, not from cover to cover, but directly at the nest. The MG42 opens up, tracers snapping past your head, but you're closing the distance. 20 yards, 15, 10. You can see the wide eyes of the German gunner. You raise your shotgun and fire, the roar of the buckshot drowning out everything else. The nest falls silent. You're alive, but your hands are shaking, and the image of the gunner's face is burned into your memory. You've won, but a piece of you is gone forever, and that brings us to the truth of the matter. People say the Germans feared the shotgun just because it was powerful. The truth is more specific and worse. They feared it because it was the great equalizer. It didn't care about your training, your superior tactics, or your Aryan master race ideology. It didn't care if you were a veteran of the Eastern Front or a fresh-faced conscript. At 10 feet, it made every man the same size, dead. It was a brutally democratic weapon in the most undemocratic of wars. It negated the very things the German soldier took pride in and replaced them with a simple, terrifying equation of distance and spread. The fear wasn't just of death, but of the humiliation of being killed by what they considered a primitive, unsporting weapon. The final dark reason was that the fear became official German policy. The weapon was so effective and so feared that the German High Command protested. They issued formal complaints through the Red Cross, claiming that the use of shotguns was a violation of the laws of war. They argued that it caused unnecessary suffering, and that any American soldier captured with the shotgun should be executed as a war criminal. While these threats were not systematically carried out, the fact that they were made at all is the ultimate proof of the weapon's psychological impact. The German command didn't issue similar complaints about the Thompson submachine gun or the M1 Garand, both of which were perfectly lethal. They singled out the shotgun because it was different. It was seen as a gangster weapon, not a soldier's weapon. It was uncivilized. This official condemnation turned a battlefield fear into institutional terror, confirming for every German soldier that this was a weapon to be feared above all others. It was a weapon so brutal that the enemy tried to ban it. The lasting impact of the American shotgun in World War II was profound. It cemented the weapon's role in close-quarters combat for decades to come, a legacy that continues in modern military and police forces. It forced armies to rethink how they train and equip soldiers for urban and dense environment warfare. But for the men who carried it, and the men who faced it, it was something more. It was a symbol of the brutal, unglamorous reality of war, a reality that had no room for chivalry or fair play. The dark reason German soldiers feared American shotguns wasn't just the physical devastation, it was the psychological annihilation. It was a weapon that didn't just kill you, it invalidated everything you believed about yourself as a soldier. War doesn't care about fair fights, and in the dark confines of the European battlefield, the American shotgun was the most unfair thing of all. It was a tool that brought the war to a terrifyingly personal level, and in doing so left a scar on the psyche of a generation of soldiers. That's the dark reason. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a verdict.